this if you want.
All their federal dollars.
Okay.
And I know you like to use the word fungible, and I have to say that, you know. Are we on? Yes. Okay. Welcome to Progressive Soup. My name is David Stevenson. I'm the host of the show. Emily's often parts unknown, and shout out to her. But we have with us good friend Marty Heiser. Marty's been here many, many times on the show talking about many, many subjects. And we approached each other a couple weeks ago about discussing the subject of abortion. And I know everybody out here is wondering, what in the world are two guys doing talking about abortion? Now, how is it our place to talk about it? And I think in a lot of ways it is, because men are part of the process. They're half of what goes into making a baby. At least a portion of them is. Sometimes it's through artificial insemination, but it has to come from a man. It can't come from a computer or from anywhere else yet. We're working on that, but while we were talking in between all this, a name came up, and this is courtesy of Basil Budakat. I'm going to try to place it where you can see it. Basil's been doing some shows talking about this guy, and had some call-ins from Donald Trump, had some call-ins from Donald Trump's father, had some call-ins from a lot of folks. Donald Trump's apparently has 12 cats. But Donald Trump's become pretty hot stuff in the Republican Party. And you know me, I grew up a Republican and ran away from the party because the party, in essence, ran away from me, and went and added in the Dixiecrats and all people that I'll refer to as racist Southern Democrats that Richard Nixon reached out to in his 1968 campaign and again his 1972 campaign when George Wallace was shot, and so you have this group of Republicans that are the old Southern Dixiecrats, and it's what turned me off about the Democratic Party and drew me into the Republican Party. We had some great Republicans back then. Senator Edward Brooke from Massachusetts. We had Senator Lo Weicker, who was one of the few members of Congress that actually was critical of Richard Nixon, and I give him credit for that because it's going against your own guy, your own party. But sometimes these things have to be done. But so here he stands, Donald Trump. He's got some positions on some issues, and I'd like to have Marty talk to us about Donald Trump. And I'm going to give you the difficult task, and I did this with Dan Carter, who was on the show a few weeks ago, when we had two guests on, Dan Carter and somebody who is somewhat mildly different in opinion on the subjects of the state budget than Dan Carter, and the other fellow didn't show up, and Dan Carter was tasked with speaking for both sides.
I can do that.
You can talk about Donald Trump and talk about things that you think are good about him. Mm-hmm. You could talk about things that are bad about him. And any gray areas in between.
Great. And by the way, thank you so much for inviting me back. I appreciate it.
It's always good to have you.
I appreciate the free and open exchange of ideas and opinions.
Quick shout out to Services Unlimited, which is on.
Service Unlimited, brought to you by Service Unlimited. I actually, was out working today, so that's why I'm all geared up,
nice.
For my regular job. As we all wait to be discovered here on cable access television, knowing that this was our call call, and we want to reach the vast viewing audience out there. But when you talk about all the racist Republicans down south, the Dixiecrat, that'd be like
50 years ago.
Well, yeah, like South Carolina would be part of that, Louisiana, things like that. Actually, South Carolina right now has the only black senator in the United States Senate, a man by the name of Tim Scott, very much an African American, apparently brought to you by those racist Republicans from down south. And who can forget the governor of the wonderful state of Louisiana? He is also, well, in this case, an Indian American.
Bobby Jindal.
Bobby Jindal. So this whole concept of Republicans being racist is getting a little tired, a little frayed, much like the war on women, and we must give money out to everyone on welfare. These are the issues brought to you by the Liberal Democratic Party, and they bring in, it leads to things like Ferguson, Baltimore, basically race riots, divide and conquer, race baiting, and things like that. So that's what's brought to you.
I know you're not saying that we're responsible for what happened in these different cities, but
actually,
but let me jump
I can make an argument for that. For example, in Ferguson.
Well, let me jump in. Let me jump in real quick before you get to that, and let me say something good about some Republicans. About how it looks like the Republican Party may have begun to swing back against this what I would call this ugly base, these former Dixiecrats and their children and grandchildren.
Their children and grandchildren are black Republicans, then they're voted into the highest offices in the land.
I'm not talking about Southern Republicans in general. I'm talking about the ones that aligned themselves with the Dixiecrat wing of the Democratic Party. But in South Carolina, Nikki Haley, Governor Nikki Haley of South Carolina,
brought down the Confederate flag, for gosh sakes.
She did, and there's a couple other names that I'd like to bring up, and one of them is the son of Mr. Racism himself, Strom Thurmond, who was a Dixiecrat. His son, who was in the South Carolina legislature, again also stepped in and said he thought the Confederate flag should come down. So kudos there. The Speaker of the House.
So come on back to the Republican Party. We need intelligent guys like you. Don't, the past is ancient history.
Well,
if you want to go to the ancient history of the Democratic Party, they brought you the KKK and everything else. Yep. Actually, the Republican Party was formed as an abolitionist party in Ripon, Wisconsin. And one of the precursors to the Civil War was Abraham Lincoln, that dreaded black lover who was elected president. These are Republicans.
And
come on back. The water's fine.
And something happened. And something happened post-Civil War, and you can speak to this too, I'm sure, about how the southern states hated Abraham Lincoln, hated the Republican Party because they were the progressive party, they were the liberal party, they were the anti-slavery party, and the southern states became the Solid South and would not vote for a Republican under any circumstances.
Sure, you had the whole carpetbagging.
That's how it was. Yeah, and that probably wouldn't have happened. I mean, Doris Kearns Goodwin, who wrote some great books about Lincoln and about other presidents, could probably go into how a lot of that carpetbagging stuff wouldn't have happened if Lincoln had survived, because Lincoln was going to be very quick to reunite the country. That was his goal.
He actually, his big thing was he was a frontier rustler. He was known for his strength. And one of the things, he also used to talk in metaphor and things
Wrestler?
Wrestler,
Okay.
yeah, in rural Kentucky and Illinois. And he always liked to talk in metaphor. A city, a house divided against itself cannot stand. He was big for the metaphor.
He loved to talk.
And one of the things he said after the Civil War, before he went to that ill-fated theater and got shot in the head, was he said, when you beat a man wrestling, let him up easy. Let him up easy. And that, I think, as you point out, would have been, I mean, it's hard to tell. It's a bit of revisionist history, but it may have been the Reconstruction era after the Civil War may have been a little bit easier if he was still president. But I think that as me. But my point is, can I carry forward what you were saying?
You can until I say to hold off.
What you're going to point out is that right after the Civil War, the Republicans were, the abolitionists. They brought about the emancipation of slavery and everything else. And but then something happened when Lyndon Johnson came into office, and he wanted to have the civil rights vote, and the Democrat and he really forced it down in the South and forced this vote. And once that happened,
I'll disagree
many
with
of
you,
the
but go ahead.
Democrats came over to the Republican side, and they've been there ever since.
Well, I'll disagree with you in the sense that Lyndon Johnson really wasn't so much for it, but a gentleman named John Kennedy was very much in favor of voting rights and things of that nature.
But it was the Democratic Party at the time when Lyndon Johnson was in office that voted against the Civil Rights Act. If it wasn't for the Republicans coming over and voting with him, it would have never passed.
Because back then, the Republican Party was the progressive party. They were the liberal party.
Yeah.
They were the good guys, in my estimation.
I would like to think we've continued to be the good guys and are on the cutting edge of racial reconciliation and not race baiting and dividing people, but we're a uniter. Do you know we have women running for president, a gay running for president? It's a parlor game. You figure it out, but hint, hint, looks at South Carolina. We have African Americans. We have Indian Americans. We have women running for the Republican Party. We are the patchwork. We are the big tent. We are the umbrella. It's just a bunch of old white people running on the Democratic side. So
now here's the two guys that let's just talk hypothetical in the sense of who might end up being the candidate, because we know that Hillary Clinton's got a problem. Whether she did anything wrong or not, she's got a problem, and she and Bill have had a great skill at creating their own difficulties and then trying to blame everybody else for it.
The problem is,
although
when
let's
Bill
face it,
Clinton lies to you, he does it with some charm. And you just feel like, oh, that Bill, that rogue, that terrible guy, oh, Bill, what have you been up to in the White House? That's terrible. Hillary comes across like a cross between the church lady and that English teacher in fourth grade you hated. You know, I mean, look, I hope that Hillary Clinton is your candidate for president. I really do. As a matter of fact, after this, I might go to church and light a candle and just pray that Hillary Clinton is the candidate from the Democratic Party. Because the way she comes across, all high and mighty, and I've looked through the emails and I found 50,000 that had to do with yoga and bridesmaids dresses. And you small people don't need to see those. Don't look behind the curtain. Look over here. I'm a woman. Vote for me. Vote for me. Don't you see it's important? All those emails, I'm taking care of all of that. Don't you be bothered. Everything's fine. I had to have 2 emails because I have 2 devices, and one has the Hillary gal at Hotmail, and the other has Hillary, Secretary of State.gov. Who can keep track of all these? Don't you understand? I mean, how stupid does she think the American people are?
Well,
I mean, really, it's laughable. I hope she's your candidate.
You've had your chance to be cynical, and I appreciate that.
It's beyond cynical. It's farcical. It's laughable.
That's my opportunity to be cynical. Here's a guy named Donald Trump. And likewise, I understand that there are people within the Republican Party that think Hillary Clinton is eminently beatable, and felt that way back in 2008. And unfortunately,
about Barack Obama.
There you go.
Listen,
you had all this. You spent years.
I was pretty sure Al Gore. I mean, Bob Dole was going to be our president. I always think the Republicans are going to win. I thought Linda McMahon was going to be our governor. I thought, I'm always picking the wrong guy. So
$50 million is pretty clear evidence that money doesn't necessarily.
Well, it was $50 million on our Senate campaign and $50 million on our governor campaign. We're talking $100 million. Yeah. That's a lot of raising arm bars from the third barrier at WWE.
It's a lot of money unless you have a lot more than that. A lot of money.
I guess I love the billboard on 95. It was a brilliant billboard. It just said, Linda's shopping again. That's all it said when she was running for Senate. So hey, look.
So if you could be cynical for a moment and hope that Hillary Clinton will be the Democratic Party candidate for president, I'll be cynical in exchange, and I'll bring Donald Trump in, because a lot of Democrats are just laughing their heads off looking at Donald Trump and the things that he says, and recognizing that. We do have a lot of people in America that are here legally that happen to be Latino or Hispanic, if you would like to make the sound instead of the Latino sound. I prefer the Latino because it's nicer.
Oh, by the way, we
sounding
have
word.
Latinos running for president too. Sorry.
Yeah, and we have an anchor baby running for president too.
We do? On our side? Rubio's parents might have had, I don't know. But we have Hispanics, we got Cruz, we got Rubio, we got a guy named Patchwork on our side.
So we got
Republican Party, the party of diversity.
So here's the guy that's kind of jumped into the fray, and he struck chords. He struck a lot of chords, let's just say, because I can't use the word positive because nothing he says, in my opinion, is positive. It's all very antagonistic. It's all very, there's a lot of race baiting going on and a lot of baiting, trying to use folks as a means of getting to a higher place in life for Donald Trump. But he said a lot of pretty wacky things that are racist, a lot of things that are horrible, and the Republican establishment is looking at this guy, and they started off by asking him, "Could you please tone it down a notch? Could you not be so forward with your hyperbole and your rhetoric?" And his response to that was, "Okay," and he amped it up another 3 or 4 or 5 notches. So and he obviously strikes a chord amongst folks that I would describe as being former Dixiecrats, current Republican. And I would never say that all Republicans are racist because they're not. You know that. I recognize that you're a good guy. That you certainly don't. I can't paint you with that paintbrush at all. It's a portion of it, though. There's a portion of the Republican electorate. Well, there's 30% of the Republican electorate that still thinks that Barack Obama was born somewhere other than in the United States. Why do they think that? I can only think of because he's black. But that's just me being cynical. But so you have Donald Trump, and he's creeping up in the polls, and every time he gets more audacious and more crazy with his rhetoric, the folks that really, really, really like him jump all the more on his bandwagon.
Okay, Donald Trump is not creeping up in the polls. He is exploding to the top of the polls.
Well, 20-25%.
No, 45% in the last poll that came out. I mean, there's a poll a minute that's coming out.
Those are in individual states, though, as I recall. Those aren't the entire Republican electorate.
He goes down to Alabama with all your Dixiecrats, right? He filled a football stadium with 30,000 people down in Alabama. He has an event up in New Hampshire where he has to rent out a sports arena, and Jeb Bush is not a half mile down the road at the VFW with about 13 guys and an urn of coffee. He's blowing away the field. He's going nuts. And some of the bad things he said is immigrants have come over and they're drug dealers and criminals and rapists, and they've come over the border, and it's terrible. That's what he said.
Yeah.
The other thing he said about John McCain, he said he's a war hero. He's a war hero because he got caught. I like my heroes that don't get caught. This is a man that spent 7 years in a Viet Cong prison, Hanoi Hilton, and he could have gotten out because his father was an admiral, and the Viet Cong said, in deference to your father, the admiral will let you out, but he said no. When you look at him, you see his arms are a little bit like that. That's because he was suspended like this. I've read his book. It's unbelievable. So he's come out against he's calling immigrants from Mexico. He says a portion of them are rapists. He said it. It's on video.
The word portion didn't creep in until afterwards, but go ahead.
Okay, and then he said he called one of a war hero. He's only a hero because he got caught. He's saying some unbelievable stuff, and yet he's rocketing ahead in the polls. I mean, it's a little bit like that movie Sound of Music. Like they go, what do we do with a problem named Maria? What do we do with and it's like a moonbeam, you can't keep her down. And I think the Republican Party is pulling out their hair going, what the hell is happening? We got Jeb Bush, he's the heir apparent. We got all these other guys that should work fine. We got 4 sitting governors. We got 4 former governors. We could pick one of these leaders and have a nice little presidency on our hands. All of a sudden, I mean, it's not that Donald Trump is a bull in a china shop. He brings the china shop with him, and he's just wreaking havoc. And to me, I'm sitting back looking like, man, democracy's a real son of a bitch. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We've had some.
How is this going to all end up? And I do not have a clue how it's going to end up.
We've had entertainers that have run for president and run for high office before. We've had entertainers that made it to the White House before. Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Basically a guy who was an entertainer and could deliver a line well, and not that he. It's questionable whether he wrote any of those really well-crafted lines, but he delivered them well. But here's an entertainer, and I'm not going to put him. And I'm not going to put him in the same ilk as Ronald Reagan, because compared to him, in my opinion, Ronald Reagan was, as people sometimes refer to him as, Saint Ronaldus, compared to this guy. This guy's
one thing
rough stuff.
One thing I will say about Donald Trump, I've had a couple sort of political epiphanies, and one was very early. I was in high school, and I heard Ronald Reagan say that the Vietnam War was a noble effort, and I had never heard a politician say that. Never. I mean, you gotta wind back the clock. In the late 1970s, Vietnam was a war. It was terrible. Blah blah blah. Everything was terrible. Blah. But he came out and he said, it was a noble effort. And I thought, now here's a guy that speaks his mind. Donald Trump.
That's fine.
Called Bergdahl. Let me finish.
But if you're wrong when you're wrong about what you're claiming, but go ahead.
Okay. You may or may not think that Vietnam was a noble effort. I happen to. The Cold War, communism, all that. But the point is, Donald Trump, not 2 or 3 days ago, called Bergdahl a dirty, rotten, stinking traitor. Mm-hmm. And we had 6 of our own guys that were killed looking for him. Mm-hmm. And we traded 5 terrorist lieutenants for this dirty, rotten, stinking traitor. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, that's what I think.
Yeah.
And here's a guy who's saying it. He didn't test it. He didn't poll it. He's just speaking from his heart, and he's speaking.
That could be a bit presumptuous that he didn't plan it out carefully. As an entertainer, he didn't carefully craft that in front of a group of folks. Well, hey, what do you think if I say this?
Could be I'm being manipulated. It doesn't strike me. He strikes me as the kind of guy that just speaks right off the cuff, and you never know what he's going to say. Some sort of TV interviewer asked him, Anchor baby, that's very offensive. Anchor baby, that's offensive. He says, what's offensive? Okay, you tell me what would be better. Well, the offspring of a temporary worker. He goes, really? I'm going to stick with Anchor Baby. I don't think the guy has a filter. I don't think the guy is playing it safe. I think he's expressing the anger, the seething anger that's out there after 8 years of what we've had in this country, and I think that's why the polls are coming in. And I have an interesting picture. As we talked about, I forgot about this show today, but this is a picture that was in Pleasantville, New York. I took this picture about 20 minutes ago. I don't know if we can get a shot of this. But this is a handmade sign. I don't know if you can get a shot of that. It's a handmade sign nailed to a tree.
It's got
it's about this big.
2 American flags crossed, and it says in large letters above it, Trump.
Trump. And this is in Pleasantville, New York. Of course, all of New York's going to vote Democratic. All of Connecticut's going to vote Democratic. It doesn't matter. Everyone's going to go and vote Democratic, so it doesn't matter.
Let's say 60%. But we do know about America's rife with vocal minorities.
Anyone basically listening to this show right now know Connecticut is going to vote Democratic. Everyone's going to vote Democratic. Democratic governor, all the senators are Democratic, all the congressmen are Democratic. Everyone's, Democratic. I'm saying give the Republicans another shot. And this thing with Trump, when you see hand-painted signs and things like that, nailed to trees, there's something going on out there,
Marty,
and it's going to be very interesting to see how it ends up.
You're a very emotional person. I appreciate that. That's one of the things that I love about you. I'm a very emotional person, too. And yet, here we are. We can disagree about a lot of things and get very emotional with one another and walk away good friends. But let's segue away from Donald Trump for a minute. We'll get back to him, of course, because he's going to be out there. He's not going away. He's got a lot of money to spend, and he's willing to take contributions as long as people that make contributions to him don't ask for anything in exchange.
That's another good thing about him.
But how do you?
He isn't bought by any power source because he's got his own cash, so he's not kowtowing to anyone.
How do you quantify that? How do you even qualify that that claim that I'll take your money, but don't ask for anything in exchange.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's democracy.
Do you honestly believe it?
I think it's Cincinnatus revisited.
Why would that be believable that anybody would say, I'll take your money, but don't expect anything in return?
Because he's filthy rich and doesn't need the money?
Then why is he asking for it?
Well, I mean, campaigns cost a lot of money.
Well, he's got it.
Yeah, I know, and I guess he's spending a lot of his own money. But
Isn't it kind of defeating his own image when he says that I don't need anybody's? I'm not bought. I can't be bought. I can spend all my own money on my own election, and then qualifies that by saying, but you can give me some money. Just don't ask me for anything.
I think your gal, Hillary Clinton, of the HillaryGal@hotmail.com, don't worry about it, it's all just yoga emails, has raised, I believe it's somewhere north of $70 million for her campaign.
Right.
If you Google, you might want to Google this Clinton Cash. It's a book called Clinton Cash.
What's the average contribution?
I'm sure it's $5.30 out of a Skippy jar from people that really want to have government work for them.
If you want to know who gave what to whom, it's out there. You can Google it. You can find that out.
So somehow
you can look it up. You can look it up and find out who the contributors to each campaign are. Mm-hmm. You can find that out. That's right. No matter what the campaign, no matter what the office, that's public domain knowledge.
And you know what you're going to find on Hillary's donors list? Your boy Donald Trump. He's giving a hell of a lot of money to Bill and Hillary.
They like each other.
Apparently, they go to each other's weddings, and
maybe it's. I think perhaps more Donald Trump and Bill Clinton that are good friends with one another.
Common interests.
Common. Well, they like the spotlight, both of them, right?
Yeah.
So let's go away from Donald Trump for a minute, and let's come to the Democratic Party and their rogue candidate, if you will. And there are a few of them out there, but there's really only one. Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. Great supporter of gun rights. I love the guy.
Tell me about socialism. Tell me what's good about it and what's not good about it.
I see very, very little good about socialism. As a matter of fact, I don't know if we have...
Pick out a little bit of stuff.
Okay. Here's a great moment from Bernie Sanders. I don't know if we can get a shot. Maybe
I'll read it off.
It's a pretty good. It says, "Greed is what's wrong with America. Now give me 90% of your income." I don't know if we can get that. Greed is what's wrong with America. Now give me 90% of your income.
Now let me ask you a question. Is that a quote, or are you just make it? Or did you just pull that out of your?
Hold on one second.
Of your capitalist ear.
I got this off the internet. So you know it's true.
That's not. But go ahead.
Okay. No. Bernie Sanders is an unavowed. He's not trying to hide it at all. Socialist.
Right.
I think socialism, wherever it's been tried, if you want to look at Stalinism in Russia, Mao Zedong in China. The Pol Pots in Cambodia, everywhere you try to implement socialism, basically it ends in destruction of human life.
Anybody in your family ever collected Social Security? And we're going to have to end it with that. We'll come right back. We're going to do a second show, and that'll be for airing tomorrow, Thursday at noon 30. It's been Progressive Soup. David Stevenson, Marty Heiser. We love to talk. The audience obviously likes us too because it's not a peep out of any of them. So.